you for having me here today. My name is Kristin Weinstein, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Washington in the Department of Immunology. I'm here on behalf of the UW Science Policy Committee, and I'm also a national lead organizer with Stand Up for Science. I'm really excited to talk about the policy brief that our group has been working on the Washington State Initiative I-2066, and I look forward to discussing this further. This policy brief is on Washington Initiative 2066, and we have titled it Weighing the Environmental and Economic Impacts of Natural Gas Regulation. I will give you first an overview of Washington Initiative 2066, an analysis of voting results, an update on recent litigation of this initiative, and a discussion of the future of I-2066 and natural gas policy measures in Washington State. So Washington Initiative 2066, also known as I-2066, is a natural gas policy measure. This measure supports access to natural gas by prohibiting governments from restricting access to natural gas, by prohibiting the State Building Code Council from discouraging or penalizing the use of natural gas, by requiring gas and utility companies to provide natural gas, even if other energy sources are present, and prohibiting the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission from incentivizing utility companies to terminate natural gas or making services cost prohibitive. To summarize, a no vote on this initiative opposed access to natural gas energy. A yes vote supported access to natural gas energy. This initiative narrowly passed in November of 2024, with about 52% of voters approving the initiative and about 48% of voters who voted on the initiative rejecting the initiative. Really interestingly, there was another environmentally focused initiative on the same ballot. This was I-2117, which prohibits carbon tax credit trading initiative. If I-2017 was approved, it would have repealed the 2021 Washington Climate Commitment Act. This is a law in Washington State that requires a 95% reduction in carbon emissions by 2050. It's essentially a cap and invest program that's overseen by the Washington Department of Ecology. Strikingly, on the same ballot, I-2117 failed by a wide margin. So around 38% of voters approved this initiative, and 62% of voters rejected the initiative. And it was interesting because on the same ballot, one environmentally focused initiative failed, and the other one was approved, which essentially mitigated the ability of the state to actually alter their energy services in a way that would improve environmental impacts. And so this is interesting. And so we analyzed first the voter demographics of the two initiatives, the reasons given for voting for the two initiatives, and initiative opposition spending. When we looked at voting breakdown by party affiliation, the differences were subtle between the two ballot initiatives, but the differences were present. And so particularly when you look at independents, comparing on the top I-2017 to beneath that I-2066, a greater percentage of independents approved 2066 versus 2117, and a smaller percentage didn't vote. So there was a greater percentage that voted for 2066 overall among independents. And we see a similar trend amongst Republicans, where, again, a greater percentage of Republicans approved I-2066 than 2117. And it's thought that together, the joint votes of both independents and Republicans were what led to the approval of I-2066. We also looked at voting breakdown by sex, which also differed subtly between the two ballot initiatives. So we see for both males and females, there was an increased percentage of individuals who approved I-2066 than approved I-2117. And overall, a greater percentage of males voted at all, where a smaller percentage of males didn't vote. When we looked at the main reasons stated for voting yes, the top reason given was it stops the state from forcing homeowners to spend tens of thousands of dollars to convert their homes to all electric. And then the second reason was it will cut energy costs for consumers. So both of these reasons were economically motivated, perhaps not surprising. kind of interestingly, when you look at the main reasons for state voting no, the first reason is not surprising. The first reason is environmentally focused, stating that it will roll back existing laws that keep our utilities on the path to clean energy. But the second major reason for voting no is actually also economically driven. It states that it will make energy bills more expensive because it forces utility companies to invest in outdated technology, showing that voters were not actually clear on what the economic impacts of the initiative would be. Finally, the most striking finding that we uncovered while we were researching this initiative was that I-2117 received substantially more money for the opposition efforts. So over $16 million were raised for the I-2117 opposition efforts, while I-2066 only raised a little over $300,000. So there were substantial differences in fundraising for I-2117 opposition in comparison to I-2066. Recently, there's been quite a bit of drama surrounding I-2066. A King County Superior Court judge recently overturned this initiative and ruled it unconstitutional for containing more than one subject. Proponents of I-2066 have pledged to bring this case to the Washington State Supreme Court, and we will have to see how this plays out in the coming months. So looking toward the future of not just I-2066, but more generally speaking, natural gas resource policies in Washington State, our group has a few recommendations. Firstly, although we are not taking a stance on whether or not I-2066 specifically contains more than one subject, we do recommend that all initiatives should contain strictly one subject to adhere to the Washington State Constitution rules on this subject. Second, initiatives should be worded clearly for voters. I voted on Washington Initiative 2066, and I had to read the initiative multiple times and search for additional resources to actually understand what I was voting on. So the initiatives really need to be worded in a way that is clear for voters. Finally, the initiatives should clarify the economic and environmental impacts. Clearly, based on the reasons given for voting, the economic impacts of the initiative were not clear to voters. And as Puget Sound Energy noted, many voters thought that a rejection of I-2066 meant that they would have to get rid of their natural gas stoves, which was never stated in the initiative. And so these are our recommendations for future policies regarding natural gas in Washington State. Thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to taking any questions.